Hi guys, welcome back. It's been a while. So today I wanted to give you guys an update on what all's been going on. We have ripped out the garden and it was really hard for me. I probably could have let it go a little bit longer just because we haven't had our first freeze yet officially. We still had some green tomatoes hanging on and some peppers, but I just went ahead and due to our work schedules and what's going on, we felt like this weekend was a good weekend just to rip it all out and make room for next year. If you follow me on Instagram, you probably saw that I got some Premier One poultry netting. It's electric fencing that you can move around, and I got that for my birthday. So I have been using that on our chickens. Mostly though, I got it so that I can get familiar with it, so that when we do move out to the country next year, I'll be more familiar and more comfortable with it. So if I want to use it for our chickens or for other animals, then I will have already practiced some here and gotten used to how it works. So we haven't used the solar charger on it yet, so it hasn't been electrified. We haven't really needed it in the capacity that we've been needing to use it. And we live in town, and I just haven't been super comfortable with using it on a charge just because of the close proximity of our neighbors and my kids. The chickens have only escaped a few times, so for the purpose that I'm using it for, and I'm putting the chickens in it while they're being supervised by me, it's not been a big deal if a couple of them get out. But they do say that they cannot guarantee that it's going to work in a capacity to keep your animals in and keep predators out if you don't use the charge. What we're going to show you today is just a really quick view of where our garden was and the poultry netting that's around it. We don't have the chickens in there right now because I just haven't messed with it. What I'm going to show you is what they did in one day. So the first day that they were out there was yesterday, and the purpose of us putting the chickens in there is to scratch up any of the extra bugs, any of the extra seeds, or like the tomatoes that fell off the vine, and be able to eat that. But also their manure will help fertilize that ground for next year's garden. And I'm doing it now as opposed to in the spring, because with chicken manure you want it to sit for about 6 months or so that it doesn't burn your plants. My plan is to leave them out there until they can eat all the weeds and scratch up the ground, and then depending on how long that takes, I'm going to cover it with tarps over the winter, probably lay some compost down over it before I put the tarps on, and then that way it'll be good and ready for next year's garden. And something else we're going to do today is go through some materials, like some scrap wood that we have, and see what we have, see if we're able to use that to make a milking stand. Now, we don't have goats now, and we may not have them for quite a while until we get moved out, whenever that is, and get established. But this pile of wood needs to be dealt with anyway. That wood was from one of our first compost piles that I ever made, so it's just scraps that I screwed together, and so we're going to take it apart, and I was just going to take it apart and stack it up for the winter in our garage, but I thought today's going to be a nice day and we felt like doing something, so we're going to see if we have enough pieces together to make a milking stand. So you might get to see some of that here in a little bit. We'll do a little time lapse and we'll see what we can come up with.
So this used to be our garden where we grew all of our food, but now it's all dead because it's starting to turn fall. So we have chicken netting around it so they can dig up all the worms and bugs and, like my mom said, leave their scraps so it can grow into next year's food.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And do you think the chickens like being out here?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think they like it too, and they stay in there pretty good. We have a couple that escape, but they don't go anywhere, so it's not such a big deal. It's 200 feet, I think, of netting, and it's a really big area for what we need. So we actually probably don't need quite this much because we don't have much yard, but it's worked pretty good. And you can see it's already really scratched up. There's not a whole lot left. And this was only a day that they were in here yesterday. And like, you can tell, like, here's the grass beside it. And then that's what they did yesterday. So I thought it would take maybe a month or two at least to get it really cleaned up, but I don't think it's gonna take more than a week or so, but we'll see how they do.
You said never let me go. 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 You said never
After all that work, what I have here are 4 pieces of 4x4s. The shortest one is 20 inches. I have these 2 scrap 2x4s that are 86 3/4 of an inch each. I've got some random, I think those are like 1x6s scraps, and a couple 2x6s. And then I have these benches here that I think I'm going to take those apart and use the boards on top to make the top of the stand. So I think what my plan is for this weekend is just to get all these boards broken down, get all the screws out, and that way we are saving room for when we move. What I think I'm going to do is wait until next year when we actually have our land bought and all of our plans kind of more finalized to actually put to work on building this milk stand, because you never know, I may decide to go with an animal that doesn't need a milk stand. So I wanted to show you guys that if you have some scrap wood laying around, that even though it looks like a pile of junk, once you take it apart and break it down, you can find a lot of uses for it, especially if you're starting a kind of homesteading type adventure, you know, and you're looking to repurpose your materials. I haven't been to the lumber yard in a very long time, but I just know that from other people going and just from hearing, you know, from the media in different places, that the prices are just outrageous and some people can't even get building materials. So I think it's important to use what you have, or at least take a look and see. Even if this wood wasn't usable, I still have probably 40 or so deck screws, which are really, really expensive and good quality. Those were left over from a couple years ago when we built our back porch. So we wanted to use what we had, and to buy a milk stand, even like a metal one, is upwards of $300. That, you know, it wouldn't take too much work to just put one together ourselves out of things that we already have. Some of this wood here, like this board, was left over from the old porch that we tore down to build our new porch. So I don't know how old that porch was, but it was old when we moved in, and we've lived here about 10 years. So as far as updates for us for next year, I don't have a whole lot. I know that eventually, you know, that's where my heart is, and that's what I want to do, you know, moving into the country and, you know, having land and some privacy. But we don't have a definite set date, so we're just being patient and kind of getting some things done that need done anyway. First step is going to be to clean out our garage. So one of the reasons I'm also out here tearing these little structures apart to make room. So if you have any video suggestions, please leave them in the comments. If you like this, give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe. If you want to see more content, I am confident that I will have much more content when we start the moving process and when we start getting animals and setting up our fencing and all those decisions and things that happen when you're moving to a new place and starting up a homestead. So thanks for joining, and we'll see you next time.